All right, let's get into it. Today, we're diving into an ancient text that honestly reads more like a psychological thriller. It's a story all about hacking the mind of a master monk.
I mean, that's a totally modern problem, right? You know that nagging voice of doubt or that sudden wave of anxiety that just comes out of nowhere? What if that wasn't just a random thought? What if it was an intruder?
And look, I don't just mean translating from one language to another. To really get the answer, we're going to translate this story twice. First, with a modern literal lens, and then we're going to do it again, using an ancient code to unlock its deeper psychological meaning.
So our story is all about one of the Buddha's top disciples, a monk named Mahāmoggallāna. And when we meet him, well, he's not having a great day. He's in the middle of his walking meditation, and he feels this really bizarre weight in his gut, like his stomach is just full of beans or something. It's this weird physical feeling, and it just doesn't feel right at all.
So Moggallāna, being who he is, sits down and turns his incredibly trained mind inward to figure out what's going on. And he sees it. This isn't just indigestion. Someone or something has literally crawled inside of him. And he knows exactly who it is. It's Mara, the evil one, a famous tempter figure in these stories. Moggallāna's first move is just direct and forceful. He calls him out and tells him to get lost. So that's our first translation, the story just as it appears on the surface.
But this is where we pivot from just telling a story to actually understanding it. Because that first literal translation, that's only the beginning.
To really get to the heart of what's happening here, we need to bring in that second, deeper translation. It's a way of looking at the very root of the words to find out what they were really trying to say psychologically.
So check this out. This is where the whole story transforms. On the left, you've got a classic demon in the belly story. But on the right, using this deeper analysis, Mara comes from a root word that means to kill. So he isn't just some generic evil one, he's the embodiment of any force that kills your progress, spiritually or mentally. And stomach? Well, that's not just an organ, it's your core, your inner space.
This special method is called nirruti. You can think of it as a form of linguistic insight that looks past a word's label to its actual function. It's not about what something is called, it's about what it does. This is the key we're using for our second translation.
And that's the whole point, right? What we're really watching is a master meditator detecting a hostile mental state, a killer of progress, that has invaded his core being. He feels it physically, sure, but the battle itself is purely psychological. And to win it, he doesn't use magic, he uses memory.
This is where Moggallāna's strategy gets absolutely brilliant. He looks right at this Mara and basically says, "Oh, I know you, because I used to be you." And then he starts to tell a story from a past life where he himself was the demon. What a twist, right? The hero of our story was once the villain. He was a Mara named Dūsi, and his entire job was to mess with the minds of enlightened monks way back in the time of a previous Buddha.
And he had this two-part strategy. First, he possessed people and get them to scream insults and abuse at the monks, trying to stir up anger and self-doubt. When that didn't work, he'd flip the script entirely. He possessed other people to shower the monks with praise and worship, trying to inflate their egos. You see? Hate and praise, two sides of the same coin, both designed to knock your mind off balance.
So, how did those ancient monks defend themselves? Well, the Buddha at the time gave them a very specific mental tool. And this brings us to our third step, translating that ancient defense into a modern visual. You gotta love this. The first defense was to radiate loving kindness, and not just as some passive, nice feeling. We're talking about an active, powerful force. Picture it like a personal force field of pure goodwill, so strong that any insults or hatred that come your way just can't get through. They literally slide right off.
Okay, that's how you handle hate. But what about that second trap? Praise can be even trickier, right? I mean, how do you defend against something that actually feels good? And here's the second tool. The Buddha taught them to think about impermanence. You can almost visualize it as this internal scanner. When praise comes in, the scanner just analyzes it and slaps on a label. Temporary, unreliable, not me, not mine. It sees the praise for exactly what it is, just some pleasant sounds, totally empty of any real substance. That way, the ego never gets a chance to grab onto it. So Dūsi Mara's traps failed. The monks were just unshakable. And in his frustration, he made a huge, fatal mistake. He completely lost control.
Dūsi possessed a young boy and threw a massive stone at one of the Buddhist chief disciples, hitting him square on the head. It was just an act of pure, desperate violence. And the consequence, wow, it was immediate and it was catastrophic. The text says Dūsi fell from that place and was reborn in a great hell, where he suffered for many, many thousands of years.
And the text describes this hell with terrifying detail. This isn't some vague idea of fire and brimstone. No, this was a state of total sensory agony, being staked with spikes, where the suffering was personally felt. And that's key. It means there was no psychological escape, no way to just check out. It was the direct, inescapable result of his violent act.
And all of this entire epic story, is what Moggallāna remembers in that moment. He tells the whole thing to the Mara inside his own stomach, and he ends it with one last chilling warning.
You see what he does there? He doesn't say, I'm going to destroy you. He says, by attacking what's good, you are destroying yourself. The harm you're trying to cause is just going to come right back to you. The battle is already over, because Mara's very nature is to defeat itself.
And that's really the core takeaway here. Lashing out against things like kindness, or clarity, or peace, it's like punching a mirror. The aggression doesn't actually harm the target, it just reflects directly back onto you, the attacker. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of how cause and effect works. And that really just leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If we stop seeing our own internal struggles, our anxieties, our anger, our self-doubt, as these huge monsters we have to fight, and instead see them for what they are, just confused self-destructive processes like a full-touching fire, how would that change the way we deal with